and good morning and welcome. Welcome to For the Health of It this morning. We have got a great show. I want you to know this is one I'm quite excited about myself. I promoted a little bit on Facebook, so hopefully some of you out there saw what this one's going to be about. But we are talking gardening today, and what a beautiful day it is outside. Just by way of introduction, I'm Dr. Scott Phillips, local chiropractor and owner of Lifestyle Chiropractic in the Clock Tower building here in Heber. And I'll get to be your personal healthcare expert here for the next hour. And of course, my goal here is to help you be as healthy as you can be. Today we're talking about making your own food. And my guest is Master Gardener, Rob Kinch. Rob, say hello to everybody today.
Hello to everybody. Good to be here.
Rob,
Nice
I love
to see
that
you, Scott.
term. I love that term, Master Gardener. Tell me what exactly that even means.
Well, Master Gardener is a program through Utah State that you can take the course, and I took the course last year locally. And they could go through a variety of subjects from vegetable gardening to shrubs to trees and other
Sure.
things like that. And it's a wonderful course, and I encourage a lot of people to sign up next year for it over at the Extension office.
Oh, yeah, sure. Well, there you go. And then you can be a Master Gardener, too. But I think if maybe we'll just call you Master Rob
Just
all
call
show.
me Rob. Just call me Rob. You don't need to do the master.
So we'll be talking with Rob a little bit more here in a little bit. First, we're going to talk some events and, of course, our article and things like that today. But like I say, we're very, very excited to have Rob here today. Let's talk some events. Like I said, we had the Memorial Day breakfast recording here before, so I just wanted to make everyone aware of that. But the other thing I've got here on my desk is actually going to be a Memorial Day run this Monday. And so here on this show, of course, anything active we love to promote. So let's talk quickly about it. It's obviously on Memorial Day, the 26th, and it starts there at the Southfield Park. So if you're there for breakfast, load up on your pancakes at 7 a.m., and then get ready by 10 o'clock to start running a 5K. Burn those calories off, right? So at 9:15, registration is going to begin there at the Southfield Park. Price-wise, it's about $20 there to run it, and I'll tell you who it's going to. It says here that the race is organized in memory of Val, Kathy, and Quincy Draper, who passed away a couple of years ago, May 2012. So it's a great cause. It's a great time to get out and get active. Again, this is such a beautiful time of year to run a little bit. And there's some things you can get. Obviously, there's a T-shirt here that you get, and then there's prizes also for the first 5 men, first 5 women to come across the finish line. There's all kinds of great stuff. So. Good event, good thing to be a part of, and that's, like I say, on Monday, and the registration begins at 9:15 there at Southfield Park. The other event I really wanted to mention and promote a little bit is this weekend we're looking at that car wash, the fundraiser for the Heber Valley or the Heber Wasatch County Relay for Life. So that car wash is going on at the Days Market parking lot. That is this Saturday, so the 24th. And we'll be there all day, and like I say, $7 for one car wash, $10 for 2. Jump on Facebook, Relay for Life, Wasatch County, and you'll have some information there on where to get your tickets. But great time to get the car washed. Like I say, when the sun's shining like this, it's just super embarrassing to have a spotty car. So come out and get her washed. Let's jump into that article of the day. I want to also say for sure that calls are being taken today, too. I think I told Rob that this might be a good show that people will call in. So if you're curious, have any questions about what we're talking about or just anything in general, feel free to call. Again, our number here, 657-1340, 657-1340. And we'd love to hear from you and hear any questions you may have. Let's get to this article. This kind of is an interesting one. I actually saw it come over the wire not too long ago, but now it's picked up a little bit of steam, and so I wanted to bring it up. If you guys don't know what the antioxidant resveratrol, if you haven't heard of that one, it's kind of a funny name, but what we think about most and what the healthcare world has been thinking about most is it's an antioxidant found in most plentifully in red wine and in dark chocolate. And so I remember a few years ago, something came across the wire and said, hey, look, red wine, dark chocolate, this is really good for you. And, of course, there was the one faction of people that said, hey, it's alcohol, though. We probably shouldn't be drinking it. But another faction said, hey, no, it's good for you. It's heart healthy. It's got these antioxidants. And so people were pretty excited about it. But, unfortunately, we're going to have to come back and debunk it because apparently a new study that was published just last Monday in the JAMA Internal Medicine journal. This is what they said here. We looked at the relationship between resveratrol levels and a lot of health outcomes that are thought to be related to resveratrol, such as cancer and heart disease and lifespan. And we found no relationship, says Dr. Richard Semba, study author and professor at Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine. So basically what they found is that even though they pumped rats full of this resveratrol and it showed some really good health improvement, helped them, I know it helped with a lot of things. Heart disease was the main thing that they were interested in, and then got all excited and published this, and everyone said, oh, good, now we need to start drinking this red wine or eating more chocolate. Apparently the studies come back and said there's no way to get as much resveratrol in your system without having the harmful effects of the other stuff in those things. And so we've sort of just kind of washed it out. I don't know, kind of an interesting article. Rob, I sent it over to you last night. I don't know if you read anything on it or if you had any thoughts on it yourself.
Actually, I did, yes. Yeah, interesting study. I know we eat a lot of dark chocolate in our at our home. My wife is quite the chocolate connoisseur, so I think what's the stuff called?
Resveratrol.
Resveratrol, if I can even pronounce it. The fact that it's in there or not doesn't make any difference.
Well, and I'll tell you exactly, with the dark chocolate and the cacao, right, that the real raw cocoa bean is very, very high in many antioxidants. And so for me, this study wasn't so much, right, I'm not running to tell my wife not to eat chocolate anymore.
I wouldn't dare either.
It's not a good idea.
She wouldn't listen to me anyway.
Well,
so.
it's not very life preserving anyway, and so it doesn't do us any good to do that. But I will say that there are many other properties, especially when you're getting the real pure stuff like I'm sure lays around your house. Now Hershey's milk chocolate does not have really any resveratrol or really anything else.
Yeah, so I've been told. Yeah.
But the dark stuff still is going to have some healthier properties. But I think for sure in the red wine debate, right, because it does contain the alcohol, and people say, oh, well, you just drink a little bit of it at night, things like that. For that to be debunked, I think is a pretty serious study, and so I think we'll see more things being looked at and more people trying to go back and forth on this debate. So I'm interested.
One thing I saw is that you can get resveratrol through like drinking Welch's grape juice.
Right.
It has the same kind of thing. We'll look at look for a reason to ease our conscience for drinking too much red wine or chocolate, or eating chocolate.
I heard if you drink too much, you have a headache in the morning. I don't know what that.
I haven't a clue on. I don't drink myself, though.
I don't know
probably
what
should someday.
So anyway, kind of an interesting thing. You guys can definitely Google red wine drinking and things like that. Like I said, this is kind of semi late breaking, right? This study just barely came out. And it's one of those where, they thought, hey, here's a compound that has a lot of good properties. Where can we get it in our diet? And they found these different things. But then now they're coming back and saying, oh, I guess maybe we didn't have enough concentration in those things to really make much of a difference. So just kind of interesting. We'll talk statistic of the day. I thought this one was really interesting. I teach a nutrition class up at UVU, and we talk a lot about especially that age group, right, the college age, high school age. Those kids for sure are big into what we call social and emotional eating, right? It's not just nutrition. And the biggest thing that pops up in nutrition in this age group is what we call meal skipping. And so if I had to ask you, Rob, what would be the one meal you think most people skip, what would you say?
I would probably think breakfast.
Easily, right? And I think everybody knows that. But the statistic from the USDA is quite interesting. There's only 44% of Americans that eat breakfast every day. So less than half, right? But there's another statistic on here that I thought was very glaringly contradictory, and that's that 93% of Americans believe breakfast is the most important meal of the day.
Yeah, well, it's a lot of people think a lot of things are good for them, but do we practice what we preach? A lot of times, I know I don't.
Well, I'll
A
tell
lot
you
of
that
times.
93% I thought was so. I guess you almost just rattle that off because we've heard it so much, and maybe we just spout it out and don't really think about it. But I'll tell you that the statistics that come out about obesity, about diabetes especially, and people that are skipping breakfast is very, very. There's a big correlation there, and so I guess with that statistic being 44% of Americans that only 44 that eat it, meaning 50%, 56% don't eat it every single day. I guess my just idea for people listening right now is if you haven't eaten breakfast yet, now's a good time. Get you something good, get something nutritious in you.
I don't understand people skipping breakfast. I think it's kind of a keystone meal of the day. You get your blood sugars back
Sure.
where they belong.
I'm
and
too hungry anyway to skip
Yeah,
breakfast. That's for
I don't
sure.
like eating heavy breakfasts.
Right.
Usually. But,
Well, and I can't, some people eat before they work out. That's why I kind of had to laugh about that Memorial Day breakfast because if I eat pancakes,
right.
I can't run.
Yeah, I'm done for the day. Yeah,
That's it, right? I'm on the couch. But yeah, some
Yeah.
fruit, something nice to kind of give me some energy, and then do my workout. And then sometimes I'll revisit some breakfast after, also something a little more substantial. The one thing I really like too, they talked about the correlation between high protein in your breakfast and not being hungry the rest of the day. I thought that was pretty significant, especially like in our school age kids, right? And so there's another statistic on here about what percentage of kids. It's like 73% of kids have some sort of sugary cereal included in their breakfast every morning. But what we know about that is it burns off pretty much by the time they hit the front door of school, right?
And then they hit a wall.
And so they're
after that.
bothering teachers, saying they're hungry, all this kind of stuff. And so what they said is if you bring that protein up in their diet in the morning, right? Something like even as simple as a yogurt or a nice Greek yogurt is very high in protein, or in your meat categories if you got some sausage or some ham or something like that. That actually really curbs those cravings. In fact, they did a long-term, longitudinal study about these kids that were eating a higher protein breakfast, and later on in life, and their risk of diabetes, of heart disease, all that kind of stuff came way down because they started to train their system to eat one meal in the morning and not be hungry, and be feeding themselves all throughout the day with higher carbohydrates, things like that. So that's the second thing is if you haven't eaten breakfast, put some protein in it too, and then you won't be quite so hungry.
It's still not too late today. So.
No, definitely not. Now, if you're driving, that makes me a little nervous because then you may stop in somewhere that I wouldn't necessarily endorse.
And don't forget Utah's new distracted driving
Exactly,
laws too, so
right? We don't
sure
want
that,
people eating their breakfast
compliant.
and getting pulled over. The other thing, and Rob, you're new to the show, so you don't know these jokes of the day, but what I did is when I read your little bio I took out Real Foods newsletter, and you got a little bio there for your classes. Actually, that's another event I'd like to promote, so we'll talk about when you teach those classes over there. But on the bio it said that it would be interesting. I can't remember exactly the wordage, but the very end said you'd have to endure your bad jokes.
Yes. Yeah, I've.
Are you pretty famous for bad jokes?
Yeah, infamous, I guess is the word for it. Yeah, I'll slip in a joke at probably the most inappropriate times. And,
So I've got a few. I wanted to find some good gardening ones for you that you could kind of add into your repertoire, but I want you to know that they're not good jokes. So
Okay.
as long as people understand.
as long as we try.
So the first one's not quite a gardening one, but this one I liked, and I was supposed to say it last week and I forgot. But what would you call someone that abandons or gets off of their diet? What would you call that person?
I don't know. What would you call them?
A deserter.
Ah, rim shot.
I know it kind of goes downhill from here, but here are our gardening jokes of the day. Now, here's one reason for you to call in. If you're tired of my bad jokes and you have a good one, you can definitely call in, and we'd love to hear what kind of good jokes you have. But this is a good one, and they're potato-based. Now, do potatoes grow well here in the valley, would you say?
Actually, I've had quite a bit of success with some potatoes. Yes.
Good. So both of them have to do with potatoes. So the first one is, why do potatoes make such great detectives?
I don't know.
I appreciate that.
I'm getting.
It's because they keep their eyes peeled. Yeah, that was
Very
I know,
good.
I know. Okay. And then and then this is another again. What do you call a stolen yam?
I don't know.
A
What?
hot potato.
Hot potato.
Oh, we're going to need some sound effects in here.
Those
sure.
are great jokes if you care at all.
Boy, they are just terrible. So let's do this. Let's go into our topic, because this is I'm very excited about the show. Let me tell you a little bit, Rob, about my gardening experience, because I'm hoping that it's very similar to many people in the Valley. What happened is we moved up here back in 2009. We didn't buy a house at that time. We actually were renting a home. Really nice home, but we didn't feel like it was ours, so we didn't feel like we could do much. So we did not garden for 3 years that we were up here. But like many people, we benefited from many of our neighbors that were gardening because they had such plenty.
Especially at zucchini time. I'm
At
sure.
zucchini time, it was you can't give that stuff away.
That's
you know,
right.
You're running down the road and there's a big box that says, "Hey, here's a zucchini, please take." And so I thought that was really neat. When we did buy a home, the previous owner had built this just amazing garden plot. It's basically a box, raised probably, I couldn't tell you, maybe 1.5 feet, but it's probably 20 feet, long by, 15 or so feet deep. I mean, it's this big plot. And then he also rigged it with a sprinkler system. I mean, it was like, if I don't garden here, I'm probably the laziest person in the world, right? Because it was all there ready for me to go. In fact,
Sounds
he had
beautiful.
planted a wonderful garden, and we bought the home in July. So we actually didn't even have to plant.
Oh.
We reaped what we did not sow, so
Oh.
to speak. And so I figured that if I was going to reap what I didn't sow, I better sow the next year. So last summer was our first time to actually try and plant on our own. And I see different people from many different walks of life in my office, and usually I like to pick their brains while I'm working on things like that because it's free advice, right? And so I got some tips here and there from some gardeners, and we did okay. But I'll tell you that it wasn't fantastic.
Right.
And I'm doing some new things this year. But this show for me is going to be very enlightening because it's going to help me out, I think, myself. And so I hope there are people out there that have a similar experience. And the real big bonus that I'm really excited why you're here is that if they're like me in the rental home and didn't have a place to plant, we've got a great opportunity for them to have some land there at the farm that you guys have,
Absolutely.
to rent some
yes.
land there and have their own spot and be able to grow really easily. And from what I've read on it, and you're going to expound on it some more, but from what I've read, you're making it very easy and,
Right.
and very affordable.
Right, yeah. We have over at Rivendell Farms, we have a plot set aside for people in the community to come by and actually do gardening. We have some strips that I've already tilled, already amended with compost, and basically they're ready to go. What we do is we rent plots out for the season that are 20 feet by 10 feet, which are actually quite a bit of space.
That's large.
And there are a lot of people around who rent or who are in apartments or just don't have the facilities available to them where they live to garden. And this is the way we want to kind of give back to the community and give them an opportunity to garden and to learn from whatever I've been able to learn.
Sure.
And because I offer a lot of free advice and bad jokes.
Now tell us about the class that you hold. Is it a weekly class?
Actually, the class is held once a month, and we try to hold it on the second Thursday of each month.
Okay.
And we have it right down there at the farm. I have a nice garage there that we set up chairs and put out spring water for everybody, and we just sit there and we talk about certain subjects that I think are important to gardeners in this area. Before we've talked about seeds, how to acquire seeds, what are seeds made of,
right,
between hybrids or open pollinated.
Right.
We've also discussed gardening structures, which are really important, I think, in this valley, being that we're at 5,500 feet and above.
Right.
And I walked out this morning, and there was frost on the ground from the sprinklers and stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Devices and little structures that will protect plants.
Now, you say second Thursday of the month.
Yes.
Is that okay if I try to give a date then? Is the June one already planned?
I think the June one's planned. I think it's the 12th, if I remember correctly.
That's the second Thursday is the 12th.
Is the 12th, yes, that's the one.
And what time does that start?
That starts at 6:30.
6:30, and tell us where Rivendell is.
Rivendell, the address is No, 2021 west, 650 south.
Okay, so basically you get 650 South is a pretty main street there that goes
Right.
by the elementary school, right?
Right, at elementary school, and there's the LDS church right there
Right
on the
there,
corner
Southfield
of there,
Road
Southfield
there.
Road. You just head right down the street, and there is a sign above like a white arch that says Riverside Ranch. That's
Okay.
the previous name. We haven't replaced the sign
Right,
yet.
right.
But just drive around and back, and we're there.
Okay, so mark your calendars for that, and it's a free class, right? Except
It
for
is
the
free.
jokes that you have to. I
Yeah,
think
you
that's
have
what
to,
the.
you have to endure the jokes.
I think
and
that was the
apologize.
verbiage there on.
I get a lot of eye rolls.
That the class is free, but the jokes. I guess there's no such thing as a free lunch,
That's
right?
right.
Isn't that
Yeah.
what you
And on occasion, my lovely wife will make something for everybody to eat.
Oh, good.
If she has have the time, and I give her enough warning in advance.
So if Mickey's listening right now, or at least listening in a later broadcast at a later time, she's probably going to be on the hook for
She is
making
a
one.
very gifted cook. She
fantastic.
makes some of the greatest cheesecake you'll ever want to try, and she also is very good at taking the things out of the garden that we grow and doing wonderful things with them.
Good. So again, let's give you that date. That's going to be the 12th of June at 6:30 there at Rivendell, and that's just right off 650 South, past the church. Just keep going that
Right.
way.
If you go the further past, you'll end up in the river, and who wants that?
Nobody wants to end up in the river. So
No.
stop before the river, I guess, would be a good indicator there. So tell me my second question then, and I love this farm idea, and I love that you guys are doing this. We haven't announced, and I apologize for doing this, but we'll tell them now. But you are an employee of Redmond Minerals right here that is
Redmond
in the valley.
Corporation. Yeah,
And,
Redmond Inc.
and they're part of that. That's who kind of you kind of spearheaded it, but they're backing this project, aren't they?
That is correct. Yeah, they give us all the backing and support for what we need to do out there.
So
And,
I really, really like Redmond Minerals. I mean, I think they're a great company here in the
wonderful
valley. We talk about real foods. We've got Leslie Smoot is slated to come on the show really soon. We're going to talk to her also.
Fantastic lady. Yes.
And I just love what they're doing in the valley as far as real food. But would you tell me kind of where this project sort of fits under the Redmond umbrella? Why do they think it's an important thing that we should have for the community?
Well, I think one of the philosophies of Real Foods Market is to have the most natural, nutritionally dense foods available, and one of the best ways to have the most nutritious food is to grow it locally if all possible.
Right.
And what we try to do out in Rivendell is we're working to supply a significant portion of some of the produce that the stores want. Grow it locally there at the farm, and,
Right.
and have it available to them. Whereas buy a lot of lettuce or a lot of produce, even organic, maybe shipped from California or
Sure.
Arizona or something.
Sure.
We try to. It's like the store here. It's 3 miles away.
Well, and isn't it great too if you're curious, I'm sure people can come and stop by and check out your operation.
Absolutely.
And see what's going on there, and what's more comforting than to be able to see where the food's coming from.
Exactly. And,
Right.
and meet the guy who tries to
And
grow
meet
it.
the guy and listen to some of his jokes.
Yes.
I want to talk just quickly. Obviously, this is a health-related show, and so we didn't just come on just to talk about fruits and vegetables,
Right.
even though there's nothing much more healthy that you can boost in your diet. But let's talk some of the health benefits, whether just from the gardening or from the food itself. What would you say are kind of your top reasons why, health-wise, why we should garden?
Well, there's a lot of different facets of health. Obviously there's the obvious of the nutrition derived from the food that
Right.
it's well grown.
Now tell me this. There's a difference then between, let's say I go to Smith's and pick up an apple, or let's say that you've got an apple tree and I take the apple from that tree.
Right.
Tell me nutritionally, according to your understanding, what is the difference there?
I'm not sure if there is much of a difference between those two apples.
Okay.
I know organic apples may be a little bit more dense nutrition just because they may be a little bit smaller, just because they're
Right.
not getting the farm, industrialized chemicals and
Right,
other things
right.
like that encourage the things to grow. Whereas I say, if nothing beats a good balanced diet, I think,
Right.
in my opinion.
Right.
And if stuff that's grown on the farm, we try to grow as naturally as possible. We don't like pesticides. It's not a organic, certified organic farm. I don't know if I have any desire to even go down that.
Well, and I'll
that
tell
road.
you, for the listeners listening, that doesn't really mean a whole lot,
Right,
to be honest.
right. But we try to grow as naturally as possible for a variety of reasons.
Right.
And we think that can provide the better product. It also adds a lot of challenges
Sure.
to gardening. But I'm sure the stuff over at Smith's is fine as far as the broccoli and other things like
Right.
that. But
Well, and what
if you want to feel a little bit better about what you do and
Right.
what you eat, that's what we're here for.
Well, what I've told you, or what I've heard too, and you can tell me if you've heard this or if you think it's right or wrong, but I know when you have to ship it from farther away, sometimes they'll pick it prematurely,
Right.
right? And so it's not even right because they know that there's going to be some time there in between the travel and things like
Well, it's
that.
like the tomatoes at the store that people see. Those are primarily designed, and yes, they're actually designed, but they're more designed to ship.
Right.
They're designed to look like a tomato and to ship.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's the only way that a good portion of the year that any tomato-like fruit are even available
Right.
to anybody.
Because they're coming from quite a
They're
distance.
coming from quite a distance because it's difficult to grow tomatoes in Iowa.
Yeah,
or even in Utah, except nowadays their greenhouse gardening has really kind of taken off where people
Right,
have used
right.
hydroponics and I've seen instances where tomatoes are produced in Canada
Wow.
indoors and stuff like that. They can be a little bit expensive, but they're good looking little buggers that a lot better than a lot of the stuff that gets shipped in from
Sure,
far away.
sure.
And when things get shipped, they tend to degrade like anything else will.
Right, exactly.
So keep it, lettuce right now, I'm doing primarily lettuce over at the farm.
Yeah.
And I can have the lettuce picked and over at the Hebrew Foods or Hebrew Real Foods within an hour.
Right, right.
Cleaned,
from picking
washed.
It. Yeah, ready to go.
The lettuce is still vasculating, I say. It's still...
Yeah, yeah. There's still life in it,
There's still
basically.
life in it, yeah. And I'll put it there on the shelf and it's good to go.
I got to try the lettuce, and we probably should give them the idea of I know the Spring Food Fair is coming out.
Right.
Coming up there at Real Foods. And I think last year is when I got to try the lettuce. I don't know how long this project's been going, but I know it was kind of in the early areas, early stages.
And we still are, yeah.
And it was fantastic.
Well,
I remember eating that lettuce, and so Spring Food Fair would be a great time for people to come out and try that out. Don't you think?
Lettuce is one of those things that if you eat it fresh, there's nothing quite like it.
Right.
As far as the lettuce department
Yeah,
goes,
it's very different for sure. So I kind of did some sniffing myself to kind of get some really tangible, here's some really good health benefits from the gardening. The first one that almost surprised me was an exercise idea.
Yeah, absolutely. I can definitely vouch for that. If anybody saw me in January, I was 30 pounds heavier than I am now.
You've been out gardening.
And, gardening has a lot to do with that. But you have the nutritional benefits of gardening, obviously,
Right,
but there's also
right.
the physical benefits, and it's great exercise.
So the statistic that I found was that 45 minutes in the garden equals 30 minutes of really good cardiovascular.
Sure.
So you can go for a 30-minute run, or you can garden for 45 minutes.
And you're accomplishing something physical,
Exactly.
too. I have a hard time just going out for a walk, just to walk, even though it's good meditation time.
Right, sure.
But, put a hula hoe in my hand, and off I go, and that's also very good, and you're also working.
Well, especially you do a loop when you're walking, you end up where you started. So
Absolutely.
what was the good of
Yeah.
that?
And just taking yesterday, for example, I spent the whole day in a hole fighting with 4-inch PVC pipe. And today I feel like I've gone 5 rounds with Mike Tyson, the day after anyways. That's great exercise, but it's very beneficial.
I thought that was an interesting, maybe one that people don't really think about is as you get out there and as you're gardening, things like that, it's really good cardiovascular exercise.
Fantastic.
The second one I had was knowing where your food comes from, and we talked about that. But the interesting thing that this study that pointed out that I read was we remember some of these E. coli outbreaks, some of these
Sure.
other health scares that we've had can almost a lot of times be attributed to the produce. Right,
Yeah.
and so it's coming from places that we don't know, and they're using things that we're not sure about.
And oddly enough, a lot of that E. coli problem was from organically produced
Right,
spinach and
right.
stuff like
Yeah,
that,
exactly.
which if you understand how they fertilize or provide nutrition to it, it's explainable. But yeah, if you do the stuff yourself now, if you use proper food preparing
Right.
practices and stuff like that, it can be just as safe, if not safer, than anything you'd get in the store. Probably even
Exactly.
safer. So
And I like that a lot. The other thing too is if you're going to grow it, you're going to feel like obligated to eat it. And so a
Absolutely.
lot of people that grow gardens are going to eat a lot more produce
Right.
than people that don't.
absolutely, especially if you grow what you like to eat.
Exactly.
And that's what I encourage people
We're,
to.
we're going to talk about what you choose to grow, and I'll tell you a good story about that. But the other thing I wanted people to know about is that my kids eat a ton more produce when we grow it. I mean, and we did a row of peas last year, and it was good. And I'll tell you, anytime they wanted peas, they went and got some. We did 2 rows this year, and we're excited for those because, I mean, they would just go out and pick and eat.
Peas are a wonderful crop, especially here in the Heber Valley. I always say give peas a chance.
Give peas. That's one of those jokes,
That
isn't
is
it?
one of those.
So,
But there's a little truth to the joke. So,
But I love
Great
that.
crop.
I think the kids, right, if they're involved in it, and just as a story, I mean, my kids love the gardening part of things. And sometimes I'll laugh because I'll say, sheesh, all this work, are we really saving money? And really you are. But at the same time, you think, well, is my motivation financial? And I think if that's the only motivator, then it'll probably fall off pretty quickly, don't you think?
yeah, oh yeah, financially, unless you really get in and there's things you can do to make it less costly, obviously,
Right.
to grow, and that's what we try to do out in the farm.
I can imagine.
But financial is not the primary reason, and if you're not careful, it'll cost you
Go over.
severely. Yes.
But I'll tell you that the one thing with my kids, when we start to garden, they get very, very excited. They help in all aspects of it. They feel almost an ownership to this food, right? And they want to see it sprout and they want to see it grow, and we have opportunities to learn about it.
When you involve children, we have some children that come out to the farm that have some of the community plots.
Yeah.
And they absolutely love watching it. It teaches kids, especially in this day and age that we have where there's instant gratification.
Right.
And, playing games on
How come when I
computers.
put my seed in, I can't come an hour later and get my food?
Exactly right. It teaches people patience, and there's a process
Yeah.
to go through on things. And no matter what you do, the seed's only going to go as fast as it can. I mean,
Right.
And grow, and kids see that and learn that. I know that was a great education. Still is for me too.
Well, and I'll tell you, with my son, harvest time is like his favorite, and he calls it harvest time, and he even has a bowl that he's designated the harvesting bowl.
Fantastic.
And so he goes out, and sometimes we have to catch him early because he'll think something's ready to harvest
Right.
and ready to go and pick it, and we have to say, wait, we got to hold up on that. But I'll tell you, I think that, for me, one of the biggest benefits that we garden, I think it has to do with my children. I think I didn't even think about that instant gratification principle, but I think that's a great way to teach some of these children, hey, there's a season to everything, a time to everything, and
Right.
and when you wait, you can get some really good stuff. Let's see. I also read about how there's more nutrients because they're not traveling so far, which I think that's really, really good. So that was kind of my top. Here's the things that health-wise, what we can really benefit from. But I want to get more specific to those listening out here, not really sure what to grow. So I guess my next question for you is what do we choose to grow? What grows well here? Maybe someone that's very a novice in gardening. Obviously, you can drop a zucchini seed accidentally on the sidewalk, and you usually have zucchini plant. Right. But what else is there? What should we choose? What should we pick? What would someone say? Hey, I'm ready to garden. I just don't know what to get. Well, what would you tell them?
Well,
here in the valley?
what I always tell people is grow what you like to eat. And a lot of people, that's why tomatoes are so popular, is people really enjoy eating tomatoes. And one thing I like doing is making salsa in the summer.
Yes.
And so I like growing all the components that I can get away with for salsa, whether it be peppers, onions, cilantro,
right,
tomatoes, other things like that.
And all of that grows well.
All that grows well. Now with tomatoes, see, you got certain crops that can handle light frost, like lettuce and carrots, broccoli, potatoes, onions, other things like that. They can deal with a little bit of frost that we get in the morning.
Right.
Things like tomatoes and peppers, you have to be a little bit more careful. They have some great devices available at stores, walls of water, like devices where you can put a tomato in and you actually have little tubes that you can fill with water that are placed around it like a teepee.
Okay.
And what happens is that this water and then the plastic absorbs heat during the day and it emanates it out at night, protecting the seedling or protecting the plant underneath.
Sure.
And I have some of those out on the farm right now that some of our community gardeners are using, and tomatoes are doing quite well.
Good.
In those.
And I've heard tomatoes are kind of a harder one. It's not just a seed that you put in the ground and wait.
Yes.
I've heard talked about you start them inside. Tell me about that.
Right. Yeah. Well, I do have start a lot of transplants.
Okay.
Down at the farm, I have a very nice seed rack that I've built that we grow everything from lettuce to onions. I like to grow onions in transplants.
Sure.
We'll talk about that a little bit later. But tomatoes, yes, you have to get a start on the season. And usually, 1st of April or some people should probably be placing seeds in little cells and getting those going so they can have a plant. Because if you try to plant a seed outside, chances are you're going to get wiped out by frost sooner or later. It's just not early enough, and at this altitude, it's not a very viable option. You're taking your chances big time.
So let's say someone's listening right now. They haven't planted anything, right? It's not too late to get some things going.
Absolutely not. As far as might be a little late for tomatoes and peppers to start your own seeds, but there are a lot of wonderful nurseries around.
Right, that you can go get some.
That you can go get starts.
Uh-huh.
And there's different types of tomatoes. You have your slicing tomatoes. You have your Roma type tomatoes where you can make a paste or can them. Cherry tomatoes, which we love to grow out. Personally, I like to grow tomatoes that are either really super big or nice, small, and sweet.
You don't like the in-betweens, huh?
Yeah, not a big fan of the in-betweens. But we a couple years ago, I grew it was either a Beef Master hybrid or a delicious variety of tomato that was about 2.5 pounds.
Yeah.
And that made the greatest BLT.
You
like it with the tomatoes hanging over the bread and stuff. And that's good. That's good times. You can't beat that.
So I'll tell you a good story about plant what you eat. When I took over this home and we had a garden out there, I knew pretty much everything. And the owner actually went through some of but we got to this one plant and we didn't have a clue what it was. Mm-hmm. And it hadn't completely maturized anyway. And I looked at it; it looked like cabbage. I mean, I thought for sure it was cabbage. And he was kind of 84 years old and very aware. I'm not saying he was losing it, but I just thought, oh, maybe he just kind of had a senior moment and forgot what cabbage was, because that's what it looked like. But then as the season went on, it just wasn't looking like cabbage. And I would Google pictures of cabbage, what it should look like, and it didn't look like it. And I could not, for the life of me, find out what this plant was. And I finally just, from sheer just OCD of not wanting to have something out there I didn't know what it was, I found out that it was kohlrabi.
Oh yes.
German turnip.
Yeah, above ground turnips they call them.
Yes. And I'll tell you, I had no idea what to do with it, and so as it finally figured out what it was, and I saw when it was mature, and I picked it. It was a really nice. We would add it to salad, very crunchy, and so where I definitely will say, definitely plant what you want to eat. Sometimes when you think, hey, maybe I can try this, or maybe this would be good, maybe try it first at the store.
That might be a good idea.
And say, hey,
yes.
let's do an experiment with this. But that kohlrabi was really funny. And actually, I just did a quiz. I was playing some quiz game, and one of the questions was, what is kohlrabi? And I thought, hey, I know this one. And
actually, it's a pretty cool looking plant, too.
It really is.
Get a bulb. I know my wife has tried to get me for years to grow eggplant.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I don't like eggplant. She has tried several recipes to get me to try eggplant. And now, granted, she's a great cook.
Right.
And did a wonderful job. But I think all the recipes that inquire eggplant are used to cover up the fact that it's eggplant. That's my opinion.
I think you're right.
If you like eggplant out there, that's great.
I've had an eggplant parmesan exactly, and I thought, wow, this doesn't taste like eggplant, which I guess was the point.
Yeah, and I scraped off. She made it, and I scraped off the parmesan and ate that, and
and then let the eggplant go.
That and my wife loves turnips.
Okay.
Grow her turnips. She loves parsnips. I haven't grown parsnips in years. They're kind of a tough crop, but. I'm less enthusiastic about those than I am the tomatoes.
Well, I guess then for sure, if you know you don't like a certain vegetable, don't think that you should. If you grow it, you're going to eat it.
One exception I like to do for that, though, is radishes, especially if you have children, because radishes are very quick germinating plants.
Okay.
And if you're trying to show your kids how to garden and stuff like that, radish seeds are great because you can literally have radishes in 3 weeks.
Really?
Have something that the kids can see.
Pull
hey, you
out
planted that
and eat,
and it helps their keeps our concentration on it, because the kids I see down at the community garden seem to be very enthusiastic about, look at the radishes, they're growing. And now, I'm not sure if they've ever eaten a radish, and it's not one of my favorite.
I like radishes, but my wife does not like them, and we've never planted them for that reason.
But it's a great teaching plant, I like to say.
I like that. I think we may have to do some radishes then. Tell me what you kind of can identify, especially someone just getting into gardening. What are the major challenges that we're gonna face?
Well, I think in the Heber Valley, the one major challenge we have here is the weather.
Right.
I was looking on the USU site and just going over temperature data, historical temperature data for this valley. The latest frost that was ever recorded in the Heber Valley was the 20th of July.
July 20th.
You know when the first frost was ever recorded?
Hopefully around the 20th of July.
The 29th of July.
Oh, sheesh. So you got 9 days.
So you got 9 days covered. So that's one of the major challenges is the weather, especially if you want to grow your warmer crops like the tomatoes or the peppers or other things like that. Last year I grew peppers outside, had a wonderful crops of peppers that did quite well. The soil here is wonderful if you can get around the rocks.
Right.
But tomatoes, last year on the 15th of June, we got frost and basically clobbered my outdoor tomatoes. That was it. They were done. So I still had tomatoes. We have a little greenhouse down there, so all was not lost.
Well, that's good.
But that's why now I can really encourage people to consider doing some sort of structure, whether it's low hoop houses. You'd be amazed what different kind of structures that people have come up with to grow stuff.
Now, those structures, like the hoops and things like that, is that so that you can cover them quickly if it's going to be bad weather
In
type
part,
of thing?
yes. Also, you can do it to cover quickly if you get frost.
Right.
Some of the low hoops, I have a hoop bender where you take 10-foot pieces of half-inch conduit.
Right.
And you bend them into these nice little circles that are about 4 foot wide at the bottom, and you can place those over your row and then put plastic over the top.
Yeah, sure.
And that plastic provides a lot of protection, especially when it's a little borderline.
Right.
Just because the temperature doesn't make it to freezing doesn't mean you won't get frost nipped.
Right. No, that's true.
Especially with this dry air, right close to the ground, there can be almost act like a swamp cooler.
Yeah.
Especially if there's moisture on the grass, and that can cause frost and nip your plants.
Right.
When you say, hey, it only got down to 38 last night. Why do I have a lot of reason? That's the reason why.
So weather's a big thing. Tell me, I know one thing that I struggle with is weeds, and so I was going to ask you now, again, the weed conversation that we'd have like in Washington or Colorado is going to be different from the weed conversation we're going to have here in Utah.
Utah has some great weeds, and if you have good soil, you'll have great weeds.
Great weeds.
The trick I found, there's a couple things that you can do to address the weeds. One is garden layout. If you place your plants in a way to where whatever device you have, whether it's a hoe, a tiller, anything else like that, where you can get to those weeds and take them out.
And not mess with
and
the
not,
plants.
not hurt your plants.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it. Another great device that people may want to consider using is like a ground mulch, plant through a mulch, like whether it's paper,
okay,
black plastic, or other things like that. That will help suppress the weeds.
Now, how deep would you put something like that down?
How deep would?
Or would you just cover? You just cover when you?
Yeah, a lot of times with black plastic, you just lay that over the top.
Oh, okay.
Lay that over the top, then it can be a little bit troublesome trying to transplant tomatoes and stuff through it.
Right.
And I found I have to use a lot of rocks to keep the plastic from
down.
wanting to fly around, especially in the winds that we have here in the afternoon.
Sure.
But you plant through that, and then as long as you have the plastic secured, and then it's pretty easy after that.
Right.
As long as the plastic doesn't want to get up and fly away on you. Excuse me. That'll suppress your weeds pretty much.
Now tell me about like some natural. There's the one that's real popular, the weed killer. That's the vinegar with the detergent. Tell me about that if you've ever heard anything.
I've heard about the vinegar. I haven't heard the detergent one.
The thing I'd heard about, you add the detergent so it sticks a little bit better because it's got kind of the fat globules.
Yeah, they have some detergents that they use for like an insecticide.
Right.
That's actually organically accepted.
Yeah, yeah.
And detergent might help that. From what I understand about the vinegar, what it does, if I understand the process, it raises the pH enough where the plant won't thrive.
Okay.
Which is kind of difficult in the soils that we have around Utah, but I've never tried that here.
Yeah, I'm interested in that because, as far as the hoeing and things like that, that's where you get into that exercise that I'm not sure.
Right, yeah, and if you don't, one other great idea, if you don't use a mulch or something like that, always get the weeds while they're young.
Sure.
If you wait for them to grow and start seeding
Then
out,
you're in trouble.
you're begging, you're on your knees begging for problems.
Please.
So if you go out there, take 10 minutes every few days.
Yeah.
With a hoe or something, go out and get them while they're young. Even when you can't see them, just kind of rough up the ground a little bit,
some.
and that'll take out a lot of the seeds that are starting to germinate that you may not even be able to see.
Sure. So just a little bit of work here and there is
Right.
gonna do a whole lot of benefit for you.
I was saying to a friend the other day, I don't like weeding, but I like the weeding to be done, and I like the garden to look
Right.
look good. So that's one way to make it easier. Just go out and get them while they're young.
And get them while they're done. Perfect. Let's talk seeds for a little bit because I know you kind of alluded to that, and that's another thing, right? Someone says, okay, I'm ready to garden. I'm going to go get some seeds.
Right.
What are are all seeds made alike, or do you want an expensive seed is going to give you better a plant than tell me what you kind of usually tell people about those.
Well, a lot of times you do get what you pay for in regards to seeds. There's a couple different sources. There's the local sources. You go into the store, and you have the seeds that are on a rack.
Right.
Those are fine. You can also get mail order too. I get a lot of my stuff actually from Maine. There's a great company out there called Johnny's Select Seeds.
Okay.
And they grow their own seeds. They produce and they do trials in a climate very similar to ours actually. So I buy a lot of stuff from them. And I know I get a lot of questions about, okay, my seeds, do they have GMO in them?
Yeah, definitely.
I get a lot of questions about that. Now, most seeds you get in a gardening that are supplied for gardeners, as best as I understand, do not have the GMO in them or any genetically. Some are hybrids though, and the hybrids are a normal part of gardening. They have been for years, and hybrids are plants basically selected for vigor. Two different types of, like corn, for instance.
Right.
A lot of the corns are sweet corn or hybrid, and those are just produced by selected breeding.
Well, maybe if we can help people understand, GMO really is the whole idea behind that is yield, isn't it? I mean, we're trying to produce a crop that's not going to. It's an internal pesticide almost.
Well, in part, yes. It's. I know we can probably do a whole week
show,
about GMO,
shows.
about the benefits and maybe the detriments of GMO. A lot of the GMOs are designed, yes, for mass production, farm operations.
Does hybrid, do they have any of that idea in mind when you hybrid? Are you trying to also get some of that pesticide idea, or is it just
no?
To
Actually,
get a good crop?
for the hybrids that I'm aware of, they don't have any GMOs, gene splicing, or anything else like that. Basically, hybrids are bred for vigor, root strength, taste.
Okay.
Other things such as that. Pesticides, as far as I understand, in the garden base, they're not there. What they like to splice into corn genes with the GMO stuff is Bacillus thuringiensis.
Okay.
Which, if a worm, like you get rootworms, horrible rootworms and corn earworms and stuff like that, if they take a bite out of the plant, the material will go in the stomach, and basically the bacteria will take over and basically shut the worm down.
Okay.
And kill the worm. And there's arguments of what that can do to the local butterfly population, or what that does to people who actually consume the corn.
Right.
That's a whole another argument for a different day. But the stuff you usually buy over the counter usually don't have that kind of issue.
And so if it's saying hybrid, don't necessarily equate that with GMO. In fact, they're two different things.
Exactly.
Then. Okay.
I love hybrids. A lot of the stuff you get excellent vigor. If you ever grown hybrids and non-hybrids together, the disease resistance, a lot of them are bred for disease resistance.
Right.
It's just kind of helping nature along.
I think if I could hybridize myself with like a kangaroo, I could jump pretty high, maybe play some good basketball.
That would probably take some atomic level gene splicing to do that. So
Yeah, well, it wouldn't be very easy, but maybe we could help the jazz out. What do you think?
that's an idea. Anything would help.
So
anything would help with the jazz at the moment.
One of the mistakes I made last year that I know now that I'm repenting of this year is overwatering.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about that, because I didn't hear anything about it, and I overwatered, and I grew wonderful weeds, and I had beautiful plants, and I did not really have a lot of food.
That kind of seems to be a major sin in the Heber Valley for some reason. I see a lot of people watering and watering and watering, and after they're done with that, watering again.
And then just watering one more time.
I don't know if it's a soil type that I'm still trying to understand here, but yeah, the best way I've found to water vegetables is deeply and infrequently.
Okay.
Just once, maybe twice a week. Your plants normally need about an inch and a half of water a week.
Right.
And if you do any more than that, you're not really helping
Okay.
the plants or the soil or anything else like that. I know my sister had a horrible time with her garden. She lives over in Alpine, and I actually couldn't figure out what the problem was either. Soil looked good. She was underwatering. She had her timer set for 1 minute a day.
Oh, wow.
Didn't realize that was the problem. So underwatering can be a problem also.
Sure. But you would think once a week you get some good soak in there.
Right. Over at the farm, I try to water it at least once a week, but I like to water deeply.
Okay.
Just get the moisture down into the root zone.
Right.
To where the plant will go down after it. And watering it evenly, and that especially is important for tomatoes, who will tell you if you haven't watered deeply and evenly by doing blossom end rot, if you've ever seen that.
You know for sure, huh?
I've learned that, and I still learn that.
Well, that's good, because like I say, that's the main thing I'm focusing on this year, is doing a little bit better with my watering.
Right.
And so that's definitely good advice there. We're running a little shorter on time. I want to just give the listeners one more chance. If you'd like to call in and ask Rob a question, please feel free. Again, 657-1340. We might have time to take a couple of calls. And then also, for sure, if you just have a burning desire to ask him a question, get to that class. I think it'd be a really good opportunity.
We have a lot of fun at the class. It's a good time. Can I give out my number?
Yeah, please do.
Yeah,
for sure.
My number, if you have any questions or interested in the community garden, my number is 801-675-1962. So feel free to give me a call on that, and if I don't pick up right away, I'll be happy to give you a call back if you leave a message.
Now, my curiosity with all the produce there at Rivendell, is it all exclusively, does it just go to Real Foods Market? What's the plan there with all the food?
It's the Real Food Markets, which we have locations here in Heber, St. George, Sugar House, and down in Orem.
Uh-huh.
The goal there is to supply a significant portion of the produce to them.
Right.
We haven't got to that point yet. Obviously, it's still early in the season, and I'm still trying to figure out our greenhouse. But that's where the stuff primarily goes. And of course, I've had people come out to the farm and actually buy stuff directly from me, who really want stuff fresh, especially when their sweet corn's on or other things like that. And over at the farm, we're also considering doing other things like maybe U-pick. I've planted a whole bunch of berries this year. Raspberries, blackberries.
So have someone come in and they can come and pick them themselves.
Sure. Come out and enjoy the garden and do a little picking and just enjoy the experience.
Pay by the pound type of thing?
That's what we're considering, paying by the pound or
grab as much as you can in 5 minutes.
Or the half ounce, whichever comes first. So.
I guess a pound of that stuff is pretty plentiful. I had a kind of a funny question. I don't think this might be a surprise question for you, because I don't think I had it on the list.
I don't take any unsolicited questions.
No, this was a good one though. You'll like it.
Right.
So if you could only grow one thing, what is your favorite thing to grow as far as what you get out of it?
Sweet corn.
Sweet corn's it.
I love sweet corn.
Now, there's a thought around town that sweet corn doesn't grow well in Heber, and I'll be the first to tell you that because of how bad of a gardener I am, I actually got quite a bit last year myself, even from overwatering.
I had some dynamite sweet corn last year. I was out in the corn. I didn't even bother taking it to the pot and boiling. I just husk it right there
and just chomp on it.
Just chomp on it. It was absolutely wonderful. Maybe it was a good year.
Do you get that seed from Maine also, or where do you?
In part, yeah, some Maine, but there also has some great varieties available here locally.
Okay.
Mountain Valley Seeds has this stuff called ambrosia.
Yeah, yeah.
That's very good. Good bicolor corn.
And is there any worry as far as how you plant them? I heard someone say you need at least 3 rows for cross-pollination.
Yeah,
Tell me
with
about
sweet
that.
corn, you need to plant in blocks.
Okay.
If you plant one long, skinny row,
It's not
the
good.
likelihood that any of that corn's going to get pollinated is a lot lower. But
Right.
they need to bunch together in groups to where they can kick out their pollen and they pollinate each other.
So instead of a big long row, do more of a big fat group of them.
Yeah, block 3 to 4 rows minimum, I would probably say.
What's better than good corn on a nice summer day,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. It's great. You can do a lot of good stuff with it.
I'll tell you, if
Absolutely
you're
love
out there thinking you can't grow corn, I think you ought to. Because if I can, I promise, if I can grow it, it can grow.
It's
I'm
beautiful.
not
Instead, it's not that hard to grow. It
Good.
really is not. I love to watch all the stages of the corn, from sprouting to tasseling to
Yeah.
everything else like that. I love everything about it.
I always got nervous that it wasn't going to grow very tall. You see these tall corn plants, and then
Right.
all of a sudden one day it was, it's crazy how fast it
Yeah,
shot
if
up.
the weather is right, you can actually hear them grow. You hear popping and stuff in the corn.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating.
Huh, yeah, that's pretty amazing. So I guess we got maybe 1 minute left. Do you have any other secrets, maybe you don't want to divulge them, but...
Well, we're not like fishermen. We like giving out our secrets.
You can get...
They're one component. We talk about the components for, physical benefits, whether the food or the exercise, and there's also emotional benefits to gardening. It's a good time to meditate and stuff. I think spiritually it's wonderful too. That it always amazes me with a little seed that you get in a packet, you can grow a big, wonderful, beautiful plant. And
Yeah.
I think that's just a miracle in itself. And looking at God's creations and the food that's available to us, I find it quite a spiritual experience.
Yeah, I'll tell you that I think if anyone out there is worried, and we didn't really go into the cost, thing about it, but I'll tell you that all the things I went in and said, hey, why should we garden? What's a good idea to garden? All the studies I tried to see, and almost all of it had very little to do with, there's obviously that, hey, if we get in times of drought, if we get in times of, it's a nice thing to have. But I'll tell you, it just seemed to me like the health benefits were so far-reaching, and not just nutrition. You think, oh, it must be mostly nutritional because you eat so much more of the produce. But like you say, there's mental, there's therapeutic, and so I would just really challenge anybody that's listening. This is such a great day to do this show, because I think we still got a few weeks or so if you want to plant. Tell me when you usually plant. Let's say just regular. Let's throw it outside, put it in the ground. There's all kinds of different, ideas. But when do you usually plant them?
Well, planting usually outside starts for me about May 1st.
Okay.
I put potatoes in, carrots, lettuce, what's that stuff that we like to grow?
Some of the other ones.
Kale.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Lots of kale.
Sure.
Have all that planted May 1st, usually pretty safe, and it's thriving right now.
Okay.
Tomatoes, you have to wait a little bit longer, and again, use protection on some sort of covering, something to protect it from the frost and stuff.
So tell me then have you heard about the horse head on temp?
Indeed, I have.
So tell us about that, because that one I'm interested in.
I just got educated about that a few days. I'm kind of a new resident to the Heber Valley. But there's a beautiful, and I got to show my wife this because she's the horse person in the family. And there's a horse head on the north side from Heber Valley view. But on the north side, I guess the word is that once you see the horse head, it's okay to start planting.
That's
outside.
when you're, And so have we seen that yet?
It's out there. Indeed, it is.
Okay, well then
it's out there. It looks really good. It looks a lot better than the snow horse I've seen in Layton, which has the same lure around it.
Good.
Or the skier on Mount
Well,
Ogden.
then I would say for sure, if the horse head is out, it is time to plant. If you guys are nervous about planting, don't be anymore, but definitely take the necessary precautions.
That's correct.
Look at the weather, that kind of a thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Keep an eye on the TV.
But if we're talking about just overall health, if we're talking about really trying to up our health and try to be healthy, the healthiest that we can be, I think this is such a great tool and a great thing that we can use. And so I challenge everybody out there that hasn't started gardening yet that it's time to do so, and what great benefits they're going to get from it. So unless, Rob, you have anything else to add?
Well, I think gardening, I always like to say, good good gardens make good people.
I like that. That sounds good to me.
Present company excluded.
Well, I think you're a pretty good guy. Get out there to the garden show. Go buy real foods. Check out some of the food. Go by the farm and check out some of the food that's growing.
We love visitors.
And enjoy that awesome new thing here to the valley. And get yourself a plot out there if you want it. Tell the price again. I'm not sure if we even said that.
Basically, it's $50 for a 10 by 20 plot. And come get them now. Probably have them available into early June. If we don't sell them all, I'm going to garden on them. So.
Well, and like you say, you've done all the tilling, you've done all the compost. Go in there and plant your
basically
seeds.
good to go, yes.
And if you're around, you probably help them plant anyway, wouldn't you?
I have done that, yes.
I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah, I've done that. I won't tell people what to do, but if they want advice, I'm happy to give it.
That's great. Well, thank you again, Rob, for being on the show. I really, really got a lot out of this one today. I'm excited to start to see my own food grow. Just want to tell the listeners out there to get out, be healthy, be well. Like I say, if you do it for nothing else, just do it for the health of it.